Like how we all get quiet.
Bless you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My stream service. Dope.
Okay, we are live. Let me confirm that all the channels are working. Okay, cool. So this is now streaming to the New Mexico Vencemus Brigade Committee Facebook page. And we have one viewer. We have two viewers. Hello. Greetings.
Hello, viewers. Hello, viewers.
Greetings, y'all. Thanks for joining us. We're gonna get started in just a few minutes. Should give it maybe to 5 past, and then we can jump in with the intro. Five past, and then we can jump in with the intro. Dang, the audience is growing. Now we have 9 people.
Welcome, welcome.
We're so popular. Hi, everybody.
Super popular. Popular educators.
Hey.
Ooh, that's a real thing. And that's what we're doing.
That's a real thing, yeah. I can't help but think of populares. Just kidding. Yeah.
Yes.
Don't forget to share the stream. If you're watching this on Facebook, help us out.
Yeah,
Share. Don't worry, bro.
We share, invite your friends, invite your fam.
Help us spread the word about how awesome Cuba is.
Yeah.
And how we should allow Cuba to help the world instead of the US attacking it.
We were there in Cuba but a year ago.
Yo, literally right now.
But a year ago we were there.
All the memories are coming up in like my Facebook, like how it's like bittersweet because I'm like, damn, that was beautiful.
Is. No. It is. I keep talking about it probably a little bit too much. People are like probably like, we get it, Julia. You were in Cuba a year ago. And it was the best experience of your life. We get it, yes.
It really was.
I share the rooster call story a lot.
What's the rooster call story?
Yeah, what's the rooster call story?
The mornings, the wake up call.
Oh.
The rooster, then the music. No, the music. The rooster, the speech, and then the music.
Yeah. The speech.
At 5 in the morning.
5 in the morning, bright and early.
Heck yeah.
Sara Gonzalez waking us up.
That's it. Yeah, that first morning we woke up to that, I was just like, where the hell am I? I was like, I'm not in Sandia Pueblo anymore.
Remember the puppies? The puppies roaming the camp. And then they were like, don't touch them. They don't have their shots. But how could you not?
Me and Oni were like, I don't care.
Regrets.
They were so cute. They like slept by our bunk like for the first like couple nights. They were just all happy that we actually like showed them affection probably.
And one of them looked exactly like my dog. I had no choice. It was
That's
like,
right. That's right. How fun.
Alrighty, it's 6:05. We can get this popping.
Okay.
So greetings, everybody. We are the New Mexico Committee of the Vencedemos Brigade, comrades from Pueblo Action Alliance, All African People's Revolutionary Party of New Mexico, and SWAP, Swathos Organizing Project. We went to Cuba together exactly 1 year ago with the 50th delegation of the Vencedemos Brigade.
Yeah.
So for folks that don't know what the brigade is, it is the oldest solidarity delegation to Cuba in the United States. It was created by youth in the United States shortly after the Cuban Revolution because they wanted to show their solidarity with people that had struggled for justice, had struggled to be free, and had won. And so it's been to Cuba every single year for 50 years now. And on these delegations, people of all ages from all of the United States, all identities, all genders, go to Cuba to learn, but also to show up in solidarity, to perform labor, to provide mutual aid, to provide material support in solidarity with the Cuban Revolution. So after we all went to the 50th Brigade, when we got back, we decided to keep organizing together to do Cuba solidarity work. And so this is a monthly public meeting that we're gonna start having, starting with this first meeting every single month, where we wanna educate y'all about a particular topic about the Cuban Revolution. Because we know in the United States, there's a lot of misinformation about Cuba. There's a lot of lies told about Cuba, a lot of misrepresentations about Cuba. The truth about what Cuba has actually accomplished is kept from us here in the United States. And so we feel a responsibility, having seen it for ourselves, having seen how awesome it is, to share it with y'all. Because when it comes to this pandemic, when it comes to climate change, when it comes to poverty, when it comes to, the failing healthcare system in the United States, Cuba is a model that exists of something way, way, way better. So for this meeting, we're gonna be talking about specifically the subject of climate change and the question of how do nations, how do communities sustainably develop under climate change? How do they prepare for it while also continuing to grow their economies and continue to produce what they need to take care of their people's needs? So to cover this topic, I'm gonna pass it to my comrade Julia from Pueblo Action Alliance.
Yay. Okay, cool. Thank you, Anya Sanwu. That was a nice introduction. So I'm Julia Bernal. I'm here from Tiwa territory, so also known as Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm from Sandia Pueblo, which is the Pueblo just north of here. And by trade, I study climate justice and oil and gas industry, specifically under capitalism. So it's been very interesting to educate myself a little bit more about Cuba's efforts when it comes to sustainability, because it isn't under capitalism. So we wanted to, like Oni said, we wanted to provide these teach-ins so that way, it's not just us telling you about how great the brigade is, but it's also telling you and sharing with you Cubans' effort as a state, what those are like ongoing. And, the topic of climate change has been a bit, it's been a bit overshadowed by the COVID-19 pandemic. And so climate change is still a very serious topic. And we wanted to share a little bit more with you on what Cuba is doing to mitigate some of those climate impacts. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just so that way I can provide everybody a visual aid with the talk that I've prepared for everyone today. And so like my comrade Oni always says, Cuba is from the future. Cuba is a place from the future. And so this discussion will be talking a little bit more about why Cuba is the most sustainable country in the world. This isn't just a statement that goes unprecedented. This is a very true statement, and I'll get into why that is throughout the presentation. So just a little bit about Cuba. So Cuba always, since the beginning of their revolution over 60 years ago now, they've been in a bit of growing and developing in terms of infrastructure, economy, and they've definitely gone through some crises. So even today, you know, the COVID-19 pandemic, Cuba has been fairly responsive and ready because they have experienced crisis before. And so what I do appreciate about Cuba is that they are open-minded in learning about their mistakes and just doing better for the future. So during the fall of the Soviet Union, this forced Cuba into a crisis. So during the special period in time of peace during the mid-1990s, Cuba was experiencing like a huge economic crash. This was because the Soviet Union imported a lot of, you know, Cuba's resources, that being sugar and their citruses, because they are, you know, a Caribbean island. So once the Soviet Union was unable to keep importing these goods like sugar and citrus, that really did put Cuba in a crisis. So there was a lot of food shortages because, you know, the import and exporting of goods was not readily available to Cuba, and so it really did cause some adverse health impacts to the Cuban people. So eating from, you know, falling from a 3,000 calorie diet all the way down, you know, to some records say like 1,800 calories per day in 1993. And I know that Roberto at one point had said like, yeah, the Cubans were actually pretty skinny at one point, and now, you know, they seem to be doing a lot better. But this was like because of their economic crash during the mid 1990s. And as we see today, there are continuous economic hardships that Cuba must endure. The economic blockade on Cuba through the Helzberg Act. These are US imposed sanctions, and again, they are decreasing any sort of import to Cuba. So this does cause a lot of stress on the Cuban economy in terms of resources. But yet, Cuba is the most sustainable country in the world according to the Sustainable Development Index, or the SDI. They're number one. Whereas like Canada and the US are on the bottom tier of this list. So, but like the US and Canada, their human development index is like very much the top, but what this index doesn't really account for are climate indicators or climate stressors, like what's going on with greenhouse gas emissions and global warming. You know, Cuba is very focused on regenerating their economy, but also doing so to address and protect their communities from further crisis. So it's not just about addressing climate change, but it's climate justice. You know, it's work that encompasses all the intersectionality when it comes to like global crisis like climate change. And so how is this possible? Like, what are they doing in order for them to be the most sustainable country in the world? They've been coming up with small solutions, small, local, grassroots, bottom-up organizing solutions in order for them to really attain sustainability in their communities. One of which being the small urban agriculture garden projects. So like I had mentioned before, in the mid 1990s, Cuba was experiencing a food crisis. And so the state's response was, let's start educating our people on how to sustain small urban gardens. This is one of the urban gardens that was in the Havana province, I believe. Actually, it might even say here on this sign, but it was just like 15 minutes away from our campo, and this was one of the organic co-ops that there's many. There's I think there's like 167 different garden co-ops throughout the entire state. This being one of them. where they grow, you know, different produce. They raise rabbits here for meat production. I believe they had bees at this garden project. But you'll see many of these types of co-ops throughout Cuba. What's really wonderful about urban gardening in Cuba is that all of the produce that is grown in Cuba is 100% organic. So while we were out there, we were eating, you know, organic produce, grass-fed beef, and you know, the fact that, you know, a country that is deemed as like a developing country is able to achieve 100% organic food, which is, you know, here in the US, contributes to the global capitalist market. Organic food is less accessible to poorer folks. You have to pay more. You know, we have a lot of food deserts, you know, here in New Mexico, a lot of those being near indigenous communities. And so the fact that with limited resources, Cuba was able to address their food crisis by initiating small urban garden co-ops is something really is just a wonderful example of small scale solutions that can then have a bigger state, you know, country impacts, national impacts. And so here, this is the picture to the right here is one of the yucca gardens. It's a root vegetable. It's kind of in between like a potato and sweet potato and banana almost. It's delicious. And then right here, you know, there are a lot of farmers that raise cattle. Beef is like, you know, a lot of the meat that they consume in the country. And so, you know, and like I had said, again, all of this is organic, and it's resulted in something fairly amazing, to the point where 90% of the produce that is consumed on Cuban soil is grown on Cuban soil. So solutions like this are something that a lot of different communities can look up to. Part of some more kind of initiatives that Cuba has been doing in terms of sustainability is habitat restoration. They're very focused on creating or regenerating ecosystems or protecting certain ecosystems on the field. I mean, throughout the country. I mean, Cuba is such a lush and green, beautiful place, you know, that they want to ensure that they, you know, protect their lands and only take what they need. So again, unlike a capitalist resource economy, they are not exploiting resources or extracting resources for capital gain. They're just taking what they need in order to stay sustainable, in order to provide better well-being for their communities throughout the island. So this is an example of a biosphere reserve that was a project that started in the 80s by the Cuban government. It's called the Las Teresas Biosphere Reserve. And what's really interesting about this place, and the four of us had the opportunity, most of these pictures are mine. So we went to Las Teresas. Before it was turned into this biosphere, it was overlogged when US occupation was, you know, very prevalent here in the US. You know, logging became a huge resource, you know, during that time. And so then after the revolution, when Cuba regained sovereignty over their lands, this area they wanted to restore in a biosphere. So they began doing a lot of habitat restoration, started planting trees, cascading different types of trees between fruit trees and pine trees and palm trees. It's just really amazing. And what's really great also about this structure is that there's a lot of secondary forests like within the biosphere, but on the outside, they've created these terraces that actually slow down erosion. So like methods like that, Cuba has really been innovative and thinking about like long-term, like, you know, what's the long-term longevity of this biosphere? Like, how is it going to sustain itself? also, you know, you see like these houses here, there's only about 1,000 people that live in this municipality. They control the amount of people that go through this area, just to maintain, you know, maintain its habitat. And so this is a really great example of a habitat restoration project that we were able to experience. In terms of renewable energies, this was a topic that I think next time we get the opportunity to go to Cuba, I would love to learn more about, because of US sanctions, importing oil to Cuba can be very tricky. Oni had mentioned before the meeting, she pointed out the fact that, you know, Venezuela became one of its main importers for oil, but because of US sanctions and the political climate right now, it's been extremely hard for Cuba to import any sort of non-renewable fossil fuels. So they've been looking for other types of solutions. Cuba, you know, throughout my whole time learning about Cuba, has been extremely resourceful and innovative and coming up with ideas with the amount of resources that they have. So when it comes to renewable, Cuba is very invested in looking at solar, looking at wind, but because, you know, one of their main resources is sugar, they've been looking at, you know, biomass fuels. So like using sugar as fuels in order to like produce energy. So that's been kind of interesting. Like sugar has a very long history in Cuba, and the fact that they're, you know, trying to use it for energy purposes is actually a bit poetic. And so how are they able to accomplish all of this in the face of climate change? Well, Cuba has been one of the only countries that has ever come up with a 100-year plan to mitigate climate change. This plan is called Project Life. They've been working a lot with international law and the UN to gain a lot more funding in order for them to carry out some of their projects. So geographically, Cuba is an island, and so this picture here, you're seeing like a flooding event, right? So being an island in the midst of climate change, weather is going to be a huge issue. So the rising sea levels and increased temperatures and all of the other types of climate stressors, Cuba is looking to come up with solutions in order to mitigate those climate stressors. So when it comes to soil contamination by the ocean, by the sea salt, they are starting to educate farmers and other communities, educate them like on the future possibilities of them having to relocate, and Cuba isn't afraid to divulge that type of information to their communities. They're telling them like, climate change is happening. These are the types of things that you could be facing in the future. And so, having to relocate communities more inland is something that Cuba is wanting to do. They have very ambitious goals. I think by, 2040, they were wanting to be, I think like either between 60 and 80% on renewable energies. They're continuing their urban garden projects, expanding those. And these are, and then also when it comes to transportation, this is a socialist country. So like the access to transportation is a basic human right in order to, to get to work, to get home, to go, to the market or whatever. Cuba has been very innovative in the way that they transport people. A lot of places of employment have shuttles to take people to and from work. And it speaks to that. Cuba is just a good example of how you have to adjust, you have to adjust your lifestyle in order to absorb the shock, if you will, of climate change. They've done this many times in the past. There was a time where Cubans were only riding bicycles because they didn't have any other types of modes of transportation. And so, I bring all these examples into this presentation just to really speak on like how climate change work is revolutionary work. Finding solutions to transition from non-renewable to renewable energies is all steered by the belief in humanity and the belief that the belief in having better well-being for all of your people that live in your country. And so I just wanted to highlight a little bit on how Cuba, you know, having the limited resources that they have, how they're able to still achieve goals, goals on topics as huge and colossal as climate change. They've been coming up with solutions, big and small, that long-term have been proved effective. And so that's all I really have today for everybody. And if any of my other comrades want to jump in, just feel free to do so. But again, thank you so much for listening. And yeah, I think we have a question here. So let's see, are there climate change plans influenced by other nations? That's actually a really good question. I know that Cuba has a very close relationship with China. I know that China has, you know, their own unique kind of plan when it comes to, you know, renewable energies or things like that. I think China's economic plan was very like, let's build the economy, build, you know, increase people's salaries. And then, you know, when people can afford to, you know, pay for taxes, green taxes or things like that, then we could do that. But, you know, I think they're just learning as they go, coming up with solutions. But I will definitely look into that question a little bit more.
Thanks, Julia. This was a really amazing presentation. And it was extremely comprehensive, and I learned a lot from it.
Oh, good. If I could ever teach Oni something, I'm winning.
No, there's something else you taught me about carbon tax or
yeah.
You told me all about it in Cuba, yeah.
Whew, yeah, if anybody feels like jumping into a rabbit hole, look up carbon pricing and how that's the demise of, you know, all economies across the globe.
Also wanted to mention that the New Mexico Venceremos Brigade Committee, we formed in the mid-70s. We've been working at this off and on for many, many years. But we've been joining other brigades around the country within the National Brigade. We were planning to send the 51st contingent to Cuba at the end of this year. But because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we've had to cancel those plans. So at this point, we're looking at the 51st contingent next year. And so just, you know, keep an eye out on Facebook, and, you know, we get on different kinds of social media to invite you all, you know, because anybody that wants to go to Cuba with the Venceremos Brigade can go with us and see for yourself what's going on down there. I took two of my daughters with me, and that was just really, really wonderful, you know, sharing that experience with them, because I've been there for a good number of times. And so I always just, you know, talk about Cuba, what people can learn about going, you know, learn from going there. And we learn about the solidarity movements with Cuba, with other countries around the world. Like right now, Cuba is sending medical teams around the world to fight COVID-19. And for a lot of the countries they're going to, they've never seen doctors at all. And the Cubans are going there. As a matter of fact, now there's a movement to nominate the Cuban medical team for the Nobel Peace Prize. So obviously we totally support that. And we encourage you to I don't have the link right now, so we should put it up on the website at some point, but there is a petition to get the Nobel Peace Prize given to the medical teams. And of course, the United States, under the Helms-Burton Law, has been blasting that. They're accusing Cuba of trying to spread communism through these medical teams, which is ridiculous. They're doctors, they're fighting COVID-19. The US isn't helping anybody. The Cubans have done real well with the pandemic. To date, as of today, they have 2,555 cases of COVID, with a population of almost 12 million people. They've only had 87 deaths. because they all work together to fight this. So there's a whole lot we can learn from the Cubans.
Thanks, Roberto. Yeah, and like part of the reason why we want to do like the series of presentations and why Julia put together this one is we want to like educate people about Cuba, like we mentioned, but we also want to draw the contrast between a country that actually cares about the people that live in it and a country like the United States that puts money before life and allows people to die by the thousands, whether it's from, you know, intense hurricanes, thanks to catastrophic climate change caused by capitalism, or whether it's from a pandemic released by capitalist destruction of the earth that kills thousands of African indigenous people. Like we want, like when we went to Cuba, what we saw, the result of the Cuban Revolution was like a better way to live, was like a much better way to organize a society than what we are currently experiencing in the United States. And so we want to share this information with y'all so that you know as well that we don't actually have to accept what's happening in the United States. We can do much, much better than what's happening in the United States. And Cuba is like one particular example. We're not saying Cuba's perfect. We're saying it's much better than the United States. We're saying that if you get sick in Cuba, you will be taken care of. If a pandemic comes and you can't work, your will be covered. If you are living in an island being battered by hurricanes because of climate change, there will be a plan, on 100-year plan, to make sure that you are taken care of and that your generations after you are taken care of. So we just want to show that like something else, something different is possible here. And we don't have to accept what's happening in the United States. The people in Cuba built what Julia is talking about, like collectively together. Mm-hmm. And they're just like regular ass people, mm-hmm. regular working people.
And what's great, and what's like just almost like basic in a way with Cuba is that they're willing to accept like their mistakes, you know. The small urban garden projects didn't necessarily happen because the state was just like, oh, like we're out of food shortage. It's because the people spoke out about it, you know. The people were like, we're hungry, we don't have food, how are you gonna, like, you know, how are you gonna keep us alive, you know? And that's, you know, an example of bottom-up organizing, you know, like it's what the people want and the state will respond to it, because that's their responsibility, you know. And just I was kind of like doing a little bit of research just on the side, just pertaining to the question of like if they've been influenced by other nations you know, plans, but it's more kind of like they've learned from their mistakes, you know. They've learned like after certain tsunamis hit, like, oh, okay, like we need to have plans, we need to have mitigation plans. This Project Life is a climate vulnerability assessment, meaning that they are looking at the holistic picture of what state like Cuba is going to be in the future while facing climate change. This includes like the well-being of people. It's not entirely science or academic, it's social, it's economic, you know, it's everything. And what the US is like, they are so unwilling to accept like their losses or their faults or their mistakes, and that they won't ever grow or build or learn from those if they're never going to accept like where their faults are. So it's like, it's also like this mentality, like this national mentality, you know, of like, let's do better for our people in the future, let's learn from our mistakes, and let's come up with plans like after this.
Cuba, I'm sorry, I just called you Cuba. It's because I like you. Thanks, Julia. So we have a couple of comments. One comment saying thank you for answering the question about whether, you know, Cuba was influenced by other nations. Another comment saying thanks to us, what exciting news and inspiration, you all have inspired hope. I also get a lot of hope from Cuba. Like the fact that Cuba exists, the fact that the revolution was successful, the fact that it's like this incredible model for what's possible, what like humans are capable of, and it's like still there, like chilling 100 miles off the coast of the United States, gives me like a lot of hope. Also, yeah, another comment just like upping Roberto's mention of the campaign to award the Nobel Peace Prize to the medical workers from Cuba that have been deployed to over 50 countries all over the world to assist with the pandemic. And like Roberto mentioned, the United States, rather than allowing Cuban doctors, say, into the United States to help the many, many thousands of mostly colonized people that are suffering because the United States has no health infrastructure, instead, the United States is choosing to threaten the countries that are accepting Cuban doctors with economic sanctions. They're saying you need to reject this medical aid during a pandemic, or we will attack your economy. And the United States is doing that as it is currently the global epicenter of the COVID-19 pandemic, where millions of people are contracting this virus every week, where thousands of people are dying and have died. This is what the United States is choosing to do with its time, is threaten other countries who are accepting Cuba's help during a pandemic.
That's ridiculous.
Definitely, yeah.
It's so freaking ridiculous. Sorry.
No, especially even like in terms of like the sanctions as well, like putting like fines on other countries that want to help Cuba or go into business with Cuba and make the US fining them for that is just like nuts. It's just like like trying to bully other countries into like not helping Cuba. It just doesn't make sense. Like Oni and Julia pointed out, the fact that like the emphasis there is like the mindset, right? Of like thinking about what is the betterment of our people, what is the betterment, like the bottom up organizing, and how can we help each other and plan and be prepared and be ready for certain things like climate change, instead of thinking about how can we profit because we know climate change is real, and how are we going to make the most profit during that time. It's like being able to think of like, no, this is for each other, this is for our people, this is for the betterment of the land. Even like the restoration projects and the gardening, the urban gardening projects, the agricultural aspects of it all is just so, like somebody pointed out in the comments, it's so inspiring. And like Oni said, like there was a lot of hope, and I think about like our experience there, and kind of would like to even ask us of like the hope and the feelings of hope and how that were brought out by certain examples of what we may have seen, whether that was like the gardening projects when we were in Las Teresas, or it was like hearing from the different like educational programs and healthcare programs, or even like the biotechnology programs. If anybody would like to share a quick experience, I know maybe I'm not the one asking the question, but
Yeah, I can share that. Like Julia mentioned, Las Teresas used to be like damaged, like it was overlogged, the water was polluted. A lot of the wildlife and plants that had been in that area for centuries were like pushed almost to the brink of extinction. And then through this like intentional project of sustainable development for that area, they were able to like bring back plants and animals that had almost gone extinct. They were able to like clean up the water, they were able to clean up the air, and now it's like this like lush, beautiful like paradise. Like I wish you could share the pictures, I wish I had them queued up, but it's just like incredible to see. And especially coming from a context in the United States where like indigenous people still on land is constantly being like defiled and like damaged by capitalism, by settler colonialism. It was like it's like really, it gave me a lot of hope to know that there's a way to go back, like a way to like heal the land. And the other thing that gives me a lot of hope about Cuba and about the Cuban Revolution is that it's just, like I said, it's just like regular people who organize collectively to liberate themselves and to build like a new world. And like I'm in a revolutionary organization, my comrades are revolutionaries. Like in the United States, when you're a revolutionary, people are like, you are living in your dreams. It's like pie in the sky. Like it's not gonna happen. Like that's constantly what you get. And so to go to a place where there was a revolution, where regular people did it, where they won, and then they kept winning because like the United States has been attacking them consistently since the end of since the armed struggle part was over. They've never been able to rest because the United States is constantly attacking them, but they're still able to maintain their freedom and they're still able to build something better. Like not now, no matter what anyone says to me about revolution, about how it might not be possible or whatever, all that shit just like washes off of me because I know it's possible because I saw it, and I just can't really I can't really explain what an impact that had on me to know for myself that it's possible.
Yeah.
And also today, the Cubans are really working on trying to find a vaccine for COVID-19. And as a matter of fact, when we were in Cuba, we went and visited where they do this research and development and production of these amazing new medicines. And so the Cubans are trying to make this new drug to fight coronavirus to help the world out. Whereas we see here in the United States, all these drug companies are trying to develop the coronavirus vaccine so that they can get the billions of dollars that the United States is promising to give them if they can develop this. And it's just criminal how capitalism works here in this country. And that's why, I really have been supporting Cuba, the Cuban Revolution, for a long, long time, and will continue to do so as long as they keep doing what they're doing.
And what's great about Cuba is like, because they don't have like a capitalist agenda, the information sharing is really important. Things that they learn, or solutions that they come up with in the country, they're willing to share. They're willing to share with other people that are seeking the knowledge, which is why like there is a Venceremos Brigade. There's many other different types of brigades that go to Cuba to learn, to understand the types of projects that they're invested in to create a better world, like for everybody, whether you believe in socialism or not. It's about humanity. It's about the community. It's about the people. It's not about profit. But I think we have a comment. Let's see. Okay, so the comment was, I got to go in November and I was hella impressed by their indigeneity. Indigeneity. I say that word a lot. Ingenuity and their sustainability, how they repurpose materials for their projects and spaces. Cuba, if I were anything, are the most resourceful people I think I've ever seen, besides like Resi, native people. But they are resourceful, they're looking at different ways, they're innovative. I think that's what kind of lacks a lot in capitalist economies, is the creativity and the innovation, or even just kind of like the pride and, repurposing certain things. Everything has to be new, everything has to be shiny with a bow. And Cuba's really down, and are really trying to come up with any solution with what they have.
It's not a necessity too, right? Because like, for example, the classic cars that are in Cuba, and we saw cars that were literally from the 50s, and they were just like running perfectly fine because they had maintained them for decades. But the reason why they have to do that is because they can't import new cars. They can't import new car parts. And the reason why they can't is because of the US blockade. Like Cubans have had to develop like remarkable ingenuity because the United States has like attempted to cut them off from the rest of the world. Now the rest of the world has realized that Cuba has quite a lot to offer in terms of like the medical support, like not just the brigades of doctors that have been traveling all over the world, like fighting this pandemic, but also like the medicine Roberto mentioned, interferon alpha 2B, which boosts your immune system's response and help people fight the virus, like prevented many deaths in China. They have a lung cancer vaccine. They were the first country to eradicate mother-to-child HIV transmission back in the 80s, back when the United States was allowing queer people to die by the thousands because this country is homophobic. Cuba had discovered a cure for mother-to-child HIV transmission. And then when we were on the brigade, and we went to the biochemical engineering facility, and they let us in there. They just let us up in all these government buildings and were very open with us and answered our questions and self-criticized. I have never experienced anything like that in a U.S. government facility. But they sent us, they showed us this place where they manufacture medicines, and they showed us this medication that prevents I don't know what it is, but it's I think it's called necrotic disease that eats away at people's limbs when they have diabetes. And so that causes a lot of amputations, for example, in older African people in the United States. But in Cuba, you do not have to lose a limb. Your foot does not get cut off if you have diabetes because they catch it long beforehand with this medication. So there's all these things that Cuban medical science has developed because of Cuban ingenuity, because of the Cuban Revolution, that people in the United States could greatly benefit from, and that people in the rest of the world are already benefiting from. Because of the US blockade, it's not only hurting Cuba, it's hurting many, many millions of people in the United States who are already not getting good enough healthcare. So it's like a lose-lose scenario for everybody involved, but the US government refuses to let it go.
Yeah, I was surprised when I heard never amputate. They never, nunca, never amputate. Couldn't believe it. Because like you said, Oni, too, diabetes is a very serious crisis, in indigenous communities as well. So I think we have another comment. Necrosis is very scary in the US, and a lot of poor people in the US have a hard time getting treatment for it. If you need to get treatment, Cuba will Cuba will see you. They'll literally see anybody, and they believe in having healthcare access for everybody as a basic human need. So yeah.
And we could go on and on about what we saw in Cuba. Like when we were there, there's no homelessness. Everybody has a home. You don't see people on the streets begging for food. People eat. They're not starving to death like in the United States. And we know the homeless crisis here, and it's getting worse because the government refuses to help people with the rents. They're letting evictions. I mean, there's millions of evictions going on throughout this country because of COVID-19. That doesn't happen in Cuba. The committees for the defense of the revolution are the basic foundation of the Cuban Revolution. It's your neighbors that live around you. Everybody takes care of each other. And that's the whole basis of the revolution from the top down.
So I don't see any more questions for now. But yeah, if y'all have questions as we begin to wrap up, definitely put them in the chat, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook, and we will address them. Or if you have a comment, we'll read it. We'll read it on the live. But for now, we wanted to give y'all like a couple of updates about what's going on with Cuba these days. Roberto, do you want to talk about more about the Nobel Prize nomination for the Cuban medical brigades?
Well, like I said, I don't have I'll have to find that link. But right now, of course, the United States is threatening everybody if they give the Nobel Peace Prize to the Cuban medical teams, because obviously Trump wants it for himself, which is a real joke. But you know, a lot of people are pushing for that. So I'll have to find that link and get it to folks. I'll put it on the website.
The other thing I want to mention about the medical brigades is that there is actually a campaign being organized predominantly by African people in the United States called the Get Out of Cuba's Way campaign, which is basically calling for the US government to allow Cuban doctors into the US to help fight the pandemic, to allow Cuban medicine like interferon alpha 2B into the US to fight the pandemic. Because like we've mentioned a couple of times, the pandemic is absolutely out of control within US borders. The US government has failed on every single level, from a local to a national level, to save people's lives, to control this pandemic. There isn't even like a clear idea of how many people actually have COVID-19 in the United States, because tests are still pretty hard to get in a lot of places. And when you can get them, they're extremely expensive. And so basically we're looking at a situation where infections are going up all over the country, and there's no medical infrastructure or social safety net available to help people. And so Cuban doctors could save quite a lot of lives within the United States, but it is the greed and, I don't want to be dramatic, but straight up evil nature of the US government that is preventing them from helping people here. And to be honest, the people who are dying are African, are indigenous, are Chicano, are Filipino, are Pacific Islander. It's colonized people that are dying. And that's part of the reason why the US government is refusing to do anything. And so the Get Out of Cuba's Way campaign is trying to build up support to get the US government to allow those doctors in to save people's lives. So I put the link to that campaign in the chat. If you want to read more about it, check it out. It's a very good article written by a number of youth, a number of African youth, talking about why the United States government needs to get out of Cuba's way and allow Cuba to save lives. We also got a really good question from someone on YouTube. They are asking, if one can't travel with the VB or otherwise, how can one participate in their pro-people project to build that better world? So if someone can't travel with the VB, how can they still support the VB's Cuba Solidarity work? And that's for all of us.
Also, if any of our viewers today are watching and have any suggestions of any other types of topics that you would like to hear from us, please feel free to like drop those in. You know, we're here to, like Oni said, share our experiences with Cuba to everybody, because we believe everybody should have the access to learn from Cuba. So if there's any topics of interest that some of the folks on here are interested in learning about later on, let us know.
for how can folks who aren't going on the VB support the VB and Cuba solidarity work?
There's actually multiple committees, us being the New Mexico Vencedimos Brigade Committee. In your region or in your area, you can look at what regional committees exist that do Cuba solidarity work. Again, solidarity work has been happening since the 50s, and just being able to find out what groups or organizations are in solidarity work with Cuba in your region, that can help out a lot. You can also visit the vbforcuba.com page, and from there you can find out as well like certain information or more information. There's always updates of like different petitions to be signed, like ending US sanctions on Cuba, ending the embargo, ending the economic blockade and the travel ban, and just like different info that pops up, or things that you can be involved with as well without traveling. Also, even just donating to either the brigade itself right there on VB for Cuba as well. There's a page there as well. And then again, like everything we've all expressed, just educating and getting that information, and then being on different brigades, like, or different calls or informational sessions, and like these teach-ins and all of these things. Like for us, we're gonna have one every month. People can tune in at the end of every month, and just continuing that as well, and asking those questions. And yeah, again, thank you for that question as well. If anybody else wants to say more.
I think, yeah, everything Sheldon said, and I just put the link to the Vencedimos Brigade website, vbforcuba.com, and also the direct link to donate to support the work of the Vencedimos Brigade. We are actively recruiting for the 51st delegation of the Vencedimos Brigade. We want to bring a very big New Mexico contingent on the 51st. Last time it was just the 4 of us, and we were lit. We made a big impact, and now we want to bring like a much, much bigger brigade, and we want it to be African youth, Indigenous youth, Chicano youth, like, you know, folks from New Mexico, from occupied Tiwa territory. And in order to do that, we're gonna need to raise funds to be able to be able to send those folks. So yeah, please donate if you are able to do so. Please check out the VB for Cuba website to learn more about the Vencedimos Brigade. And yeah, the other thing I would add about how to help if you can't travel is like, tell the truth about Cuba, like spread the truth. Like all the knowledge that Julia dropped in this presentation, like tell your friends, share the video. Like we are completely inundated with lies about Cuba in the United States. Like from literally like from almost like kindergarten, all for your entire life, you hear nothing but lies about Cuba, nothing but lies about Fidel Castro, nothing but lies about the possibility of revolution. And so it's extremely important for the folks who know better, who are taking the time to learn about Cuba and to learn the truth, to like share that information with their community, share that information with the folks around you, and to begin to break this myth. Because it's not only like wrong, it's like immoral what the United States is doing to the Cuban people. It's like messed up and needs to be stopped, but it's also, like I said, harming us. Like we have so much that we could learn from Cuba. There's like so much that Cuba could show us and so much that Cuba could share with us that would improve the lives of people living in the United States. But because we are told nothing but untruths, we don't even realize what we're missing out on. So what you can do if you can't travel is like learn about Cuba as much as you can, and then tell the truth. Share that information with the people around you. Anyone else?
Couldn't say it better myself. But yeah, no, I just want to say thank you. I enjoyed putting together the presentation today. There was another comment being like, it would be great to show films from Cuba. Roberto is advertising the Motorcycle Diaries behind him, which is the story around Che Guevara. And so, you know, we'll definitely be sharing more resources and films and things like that, you know, to appeal to those type of learning styles. But yeah, I don't know if anybody else has anything else to say.
You can also see, you know, in these monthly educational series that we're going to be doing, is we can bring in some guests. If you have any people that have expertise around Cuba, you know, maybe we can bring them on and have them do this with us. Instead of having just to see our 4 faces, for beautiful faces, if I must say. But we can just bring in other people as well and share the information, because there's a lot of expertise around our communities, what's going on in Cuba. So, and we can even, with technology today, we can bring in people from New York, San Francisco, Cuba, because we work with organizations in Cuba, the ICAP, Instituto Cubano de Amistad con los Pueblos. They're the ones that sponsor our trips to Cuba. And we're in touch with them all the time. And then, of course, there's the Cuban U.S. interest section in New York City. So, there's different contacts we have that we could share. And maybe bring them on to talk a little bit.
You're giving me ideas, Roberto.
Yes, all the ideas. We'll like Sheldon and Oni and Roberto had mentioned, we'll be here. We'll be continuously spreading the truth about Cuba. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any one of us. And we'll see you all like at the end of next month, right?
August 26th, Wednesday, August 26th at 6 p.m.
Okay. Sounds good. Does anybody else have anything else to say?
Thank you for everybody tuning in.
Thank you.
Bye.
And we'll see you all. Bye.